I was 18 when I opened the acceptance letter from State University. My hands shook as I read those words, "Congratulations, admitted to the engineering program." 4 years of late nights, studying perfect attendance, working part-time at the pizza shop. All of it was finally paying off. My parents had always told me they were saving for this exact moment. That college fund had been growing since the day I was born. But then came that family meeting on a Tuesday evening in May, and everything I thought I knew about my future shattered in under an hour. Before I tell you what happened that night, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself when family lets you down. Trust me, you will want to hear how this one plays out. We lived in a middle-class neighborhood just outside Cleveland, Ohio. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. My father worked as a supervisor at a manufacturing plant, same job for 23 years. My mother was a part-time nurse at the local clinic. They believed in hard work and stability. More importantly, they believed in education. That was the message they hammered into me and my older brother Brian, from the time we could understand words. Brian was 4 years older than me. He went to college first, majored in business administration at a decent state school. His grades were average, nothing spectacular. When he graduated, he bounced between sales jobs and marketing positions. None of them lasted more than 8 months. He always had an excuse. The boss did not appreciate his ideas. The company culture was toxic. The industry was dying. He lived in our parents' basement until he was 26 years old, talking about his next big move while playing video games until 3 in the morning. I took a different path. I kept my head down and focused. My grade point average was 3.8. I worked 20 hours a week at a local pizza place, saved every dollar I could. I taught myself basic coding through free online courses. I joined the robotics club at school and led our team to regionals. When college acceptance letters started arriving, I had been admitted to 3 schools. The state university offered a partial scholarship that would cover about 40% of tuition. The rest would come from the college fund my parents had been building since I was born. $75,000. They showed me the statements every year on my birthday, proof that they were investing in my future. That May evening, Mom called us to the dining room table. She had that serious look on her face, the one she wore when delivering bad news. Dad sat at the head of the table, hands folded. Brian was already there with his laptop open, looking nervous but excited. I remember feeling confused. This felt too formal for a regular dinner. Brian launched into what he called a presentation. He had slides prepared, graphics and charts. He talked about a startup idea that would revolutionize local business. A mobile app connecting neighborhood shops with customers who wanted to support small enterprises. He used words like synergy and market penetration and scalable model. The technical details were vague when I asked questions. "Just trust me," he kept saying. "This is the future." Then came the number. He needed $70,000 to get started. Money for developers, for office space, for marketing. He already had investors interested, he claimed, but they wanted to see that he had skin in the game first. Seed money. That was the term he used. My parents exchanged a look. Then Dad cleared his throat and said they had a proposal. They wanted to invest in Brian's business. They believed in his vision. They believed in supporting family dreams. And the money would come from my college fund. The room tilted. I heard the words, but they did not make sense at first. "That is my money," I said. "You saved that for my education." Dad shook his head slowly. "We saved it for your future," he corrected me. "Brian's success is family success. When the business takes off, everyone benefits." He turned to Brian, who nodded enthusiastically. "I will pay you back double within a year," Brian promised. "This is a sure thing, bro." Mom jumped in with alternatives for me. I could attend community college for the first 2 years, she suggested. Much cheaper. Then transfer to university later. Or I could defer enrollment work full-time, save up. Apply for more scholarships. Take out student loans like other kids. The important thing, she said, was that we support each other as a family. Brian had a real opportunity here, a once-in-a-lifetime chance. I felt sick. This was not right. They were taking something that belonged to me and giving it to Brian, who had already proven he could not hold down a regular job. But they were my parents. They were looking at me with such expectation, such hope that I would understand. Brian added more pressure, talking about how families should lift each other up, how I was young and had time, how he was getting older and needed to make his move now before it was too late. What was I supposed to say? If I refused, I would be the selfish one, the son who did not care about his brother's dreams, the one tearing the family apart over money. I felt the weight of their disappointment before I even opened my mouth. So I swallowed the anger and the hurt and the disbelief, and I nodded. "Fine," I said. "Fine." 1 week later, I watched my father transfer $75,000 into Brian's new business account. I received an automated email notification that my college fund was now closed. Balance $0.00. I sat in my bedroom staring at that email for an hour, feeling something break inside my chest that I did not have words for yet. I called the university admissions office and asked to defer my enrollment for 1 year. The woman on the phone was kind. She said lots of students took gap years. It would be fine. But I heard the unspoken question in her voice. Why would someone with a partial scholarship and obvious academic promise delay college? I did not tell her the truth. I just thanked her and hung up. My friends were posting photos of their college acceptance letters on social media. Everyone was excited about dorm assignments and orientation week and football games. I started working full-time at a distribution warehouse across town. The pay was $9 per hour. I calculated that if I worked 60 hours a week and lived at home, I might save $20,000 in a year. Maybe 30 if I was lucky. It would not be enough for 4 years of university, but it was something. Brian moved fast with the money. He rented a small office space downtown, in a building that had seen better days. He registered the business as TechBridge Solutions, printed glossy business cards, designed a logo that cost $1,500. He posted photos on social media constantly. Look at this office. Look at this view. Entrepreneur life. Living the dream. He bought himself a new MacBook Pro. Top of the line. Then the latest iPhone, because as he explained to our parents, he needed to test the app on current technology. He hired 2 of his friends from college as developers. Neither had computer science degrees or professional coding experience, but Brian insisted they were talented. They played a lot of video games together, which apparently qualified them as tech-savvy. The launch party happened at the end of month 1. Brian rented space at a trendy bar, bought catering, invited everyone he knew. I did not go. I was working a double shift at the warehouse loading trucks until my back ached. But I saw the photos later. Brian in a suit, holding a microphone, standing in front of a banner with the TechBridge logo. People holding drinks and smiling. It looked successful. It looked real. Month 2. I asked how development was going. Brian said they were in the building phase. Lots of back-end work. Very technical. I would not understand. Month 3, I asked to see a demo. He got defensive. Not ready to show yet, he said. Too early. Still testing with beta users. What beta users? I asked. He changed the subject. I noticed things. Brian bought a used Audi. $25,000. He said it was important for client meetings, for looking professional. He ate lunch at expensive restaurants and posted photos of steak dinners with people he called business partners. He wore designer jeans and a watch that cost more than I made in 2 months. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I worked 60 to 70 hours every week, came home exhausted, fell into bed, and did it again the next day. My savings account grew slowly. 5,000, 8,000, 12,000. It felt like trying to fill an ocean with a teaspoon. Every time I saw Brian, I asked about the money. When would the app launch? When would he start making revenue? He always had an answer ready. We are in the development phase. We are building the user base. We are refining the product. Rome was not built in a day. Have faith. It is an investment, not a loan. Investments take time to mature. Month 5 arrived. Brian called an emergency meeting with our parents. He needed more money. $15,000 this time for marketing and scaling up. The app was almost ready, he said. He just needed a bigger advertising budget to make noise in the market. Dad looked tired. Mom looked worried. But they withdrew $15,000 from their retirement fund and gave it to Brian. Because family supports family. Month 6 was when everything collapsed. Dad called me at work on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice was flat, empty. We need to talk. Come home after your shift. I knew before I walked through the door. I knew from the way Mom would not look at me. I knew from Brian sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. The business was done. Over. Finished. There was no money left. The app was never really completed. What Brian had was a series of mock-up screens, rough sketches of what the interface might look like. Nothing functional. Nothing that could actually be downloaded or used. The investors he kept mentioning friends. He met at a bar who talked big, but never committed a single dollar. The beta users, imaginary. I asked how this happened. Brian went through the numbers. $30,000 went to office rent and equipment he did not need. $20,000 went to marketing campaigns for a product that did not exist, advertisements that led nowhere. $15,000 went to salaries for his developer friends who spent most of their time arguing about fantasy football. The rest disappeared into Brian's lifestyle. The car, the clothes, the dinners, the trip to Las Vegas for networking. That was really just a vacation. I stood in that living room and felt rage pour through me like gasoline. You wasted my entire college fund, I said. Brian looked up. His eyes were red. Business is risky, he said. I tried my best. Sometimes things do not work out. No apology, no real accountability. Just a shrug and an excuse. I turned to my parents. What are you going to do about this? Dad shook his head. What can we do? The money is gone. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. Brian worked hard, she said. He really tried. Sometimes ventures fail. That is just how it goes. I stared at her. He did not work hard. He bought an Audi and ate at steakhouses while I loaded boxes for minimum wage. She flinched, but kept talking. You need to be more understanding. This is hard for Brian too. That was the moment I understood. In this family, Brian would always be the priority. His feelings, his dreams, his failures. I was supposed to be understanding. I was supposed to move on. I was supposed to not hold grudges, because that is what good sons do. Dad said I was being selfish. He actually used that word. Selfish. After they gave my college fund to Brian and watched him light it on fire. Family sticks together, he said. We get through this together. I walked out of that house, knowing I was done sticking together with people who would never stick up for me. 2 weeks later, I met an Army recruiter at the mall. He was sitting at a table near the food court, chatting with a kid in a varsity jacket. I had walked past military recruiters 100 times before and never stopped. But that day, something made me pause. The recruiter's name was Sergeant Harris. Older guy, maybe 40, with a calm way of talking that put people at ease. He asked if I had college plans. I laughed. Not anymore, I said. He did not press for details. He just started telling me about education benefits, the GI Bill, how the military would pay for college after you served, full tuition, housing allowance, book stipend, everything. I thought he was exaggerating. Nobody just gives away free college. But I went home and researched. It was real. Serve 4 years, get your education fully funded, plus salary while you were in, plus housing, plus healthcare, plus job training in dozens of career fields. I took the ASVAB test the next week. It measures your skills in different areas to help match you with military jobs. I scored high enough to qualify for most positions. I chose 25B Information Technology Specialist. If I could not go to college right now, at least I could learn skills that would matter later. I signed a 4-year contract without telling my family. When I finally told them, Mom cried. Dad said I was making a mistake being dramatic. Brian said I was running away from my problems. Maybe I was. But I was also running toward something. Something I was building for myself with no one's permission or approval or investment required. I left for basic combat training at Fort Benning, Georgia, 1 week later. I packed a duffel bag, hugged my mother, shook my father's hand, and did not look back when the bus pulled away. Basic training was the hardest 10 weeks of my life. We woke at 5 in the morning. We ran miles before breakfast. We did push-ups until our arms shook. We learned to shoot rifles, to march in formation, to survive on 3 hours of sleep. Drill sergeants screamed in our faces about discipline and dedication and never quitting. Half a dozen recruits in my platoon dropped out in the first 3 weeks. But I loved it. For the first time in my life, success was completely in my control. Nobody could take my accomplishments and give them to someone else. If I passed a test, that was mine. If I finished a ruck march, that was mine. Every achievement belonged to me alone. After basic came AIT Advanced Individual Training at Fort Gordon in Georgia. This was where I learned my actual job. Cybersecurity fundamentals, network administration, IT systems management. I discovered I was good at this. Really good. I understood how systems talk to each other, how to find vulnerabilities, how to build defenses. I spent 12 hours a day in classrooms and labs soaking up knowledge like I was dying of thirst. I also met other soldiers who joined for the same reason I did. The education benefits. We were all betting on ourselves, investing in futures that nobody else would fund. We studied together, pushed each other, became friends in a way that felt different from civilian friendships. We understood sacrifice. We understood working for something. My first 2 years in the Army, I was stationed at a base in North Carolina. I worked as a network administrator for a communications unit. During the day, I kept systems running. At night, I took online classes through University of Maryland, which offered free courses to military members. I declared a major in computer science and started chipping away at degree requirements. It was brutal. I worked 40 hours a week at my military job, then spent another 20 hours on coursework. Weekends disappeared into homework and projects. I barely slept. But every completed class was a stone in the foundation I was building. Nobody could take these credits from me. Nobody could redirect this education to someone else's dream. Year 3, I got orders for Germany, Stuttgart. I was assigned to a cybersecurity unit supporting operations across Europe. I kept taking classes online, kept pushing through. The time zone difference made scheduling difficult. I attended live lectures at 2 in the morning, sometimes sitting in my barracks room with headphones on, while my roommate slept 6 feet away. Year 4, I graduated. Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from University of Maryland. Grade point average 3.6. I also earned professional certifications. CompTIA Security Plus. Certified Ethical Hacker. These were credentials that actually meant something in the job market. During those 4 years, I barely spoke to my family. A phone call on Christmas. A text on birthdays. I heard through Mom's occasional emails that Brian tried 2 more business ventures. One was a social media consulting company. It lasted 4 months. The other was an import-export scheme involving vintage watches. It lasted 2. My parents had to work extra shifts to rebuild their retirement fund. They kept asking when I would visit. I kept finding reasons to stay away. I left the Army at 23 years old, with a degree, no debt, 4 years of hands-on IT experience, and an active security clearance. That clearance alone made me valuable. Defense contractors paid premium salaries for workers who already had clearance, because the process took months, and cost tens of thousands of dollars. I applied for cybersecurity analyst positions and got multiple offers. I chose a defense contractor in Northern Virginia. Starting salary, $72,000 per year. I moved into a small apartment in Arlington, bought a reliable used car, and started my civilian career. The work was challenging. I analyzed threats, built security protocols, responded to incidents. I was good at it, really good. My military experience gave me discipline and problem-solving skills that most of my colleagues did not have. I got promoted within 18 months. 3 years later, I moved to the private sector. A financial technology company in D.C. needed a senior cybersecurity analyst. They offered me $120,000 per year, 6 figures. I was 28 years old, living in my own place, driving a dependable car, saving for retirement, dating an amazing woman I met at a cybersecurity conference. Life was stable. Life was mine. Then Brian found my LinkedIn profile. He called on a Thursday evening. I almost did not answer. We had not spoken in years, except for brief, awkward conversations on holidays. But curiosity got the better of me. The first few minutes were small talk. How are you doing? What is new? That sort of thing. Then he got to the point. He had this incredible opportunity. Another business idea. This one was different, he promised. He had learned from his mistakes. He just needed some startup capital. $20,000. You are doing well now, he said. I saw your profile. That is a great company. Great salary. You can afford to help your brother out, right? I felt that old anger stir. No, I said. I cannot do that, Brian. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean you cannot? I explained calmly that I would not be lending or giving him money. He got defensive. So you are just going to forget where you came from. Forget your family. Forget that we grew up together. I kept my voice steady. I did not forget anything. I just learned not to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. He called me selfish. He called me cold. He said I changed, and not for the better. Then he hung up. 2 days later, my parents called. I knew what was coming. Your brother came to us very upset, Mom said. He says you refused to help him. Dad got on the line. You have a good job now. You make good money. Your brother is struggling. Family is supposed to support each other. Why are you being so stubborn? I tried to explain. You chose Brian over me once. You gave him my college fund, and he wasted it. I built this life from nothing. I am not going to enable the same pattern. Dad said I was holding on to the past. Mom said I was being unforgiving. They actually used the word unforgiving, as if forgiveness meant funding Brian's next guaranteed failure. The conversation ended badly. We did not speak for a month. Then, 2 months. Then, Brian called again with another idea, another request, another promise that this time would be different. I said no again. The cycle repeated every few months. Brian had an idea. Brian needed money. I refused. My parents intervened, confused and hurt that I was being so heartless toward my own brother. The first year after I started saying no, I struggled with guilt. I questioned myself constantly. Was I being too harsh? Was I holding a grudge? Should I give him one more chance? I had nightmares about becoming the kind of person who turned their back on family. I remembered good times from childhood. Building forts in the backyard with Brian, playing basketball in the driveway. Those memories felt heavy. But I also started seeing a therapist through Veterans Affairs. She helped me work through the betrayal. She asked questions that made me think differently. If a friend treated you this way, would you keep lending them money? If a stranger asked you to fund their third failed business, would you do it? Why should family get a free pass to take advantage of you? I learned that saying no was not mean. It was self-respect. I learned that love does not require enabling destructive behavior. I learned that I could care about my family without sacrificing my own well-being on the altar of their bad decisions. I started building a different kind of family. My friends from the military understood sacrifice and discipline. They celebrated my accomplishments without jealousy. My colleagues at work respected what I had achieved. My girlfriend, who became my fiancée, supported me and felt proud of the journey I took to get where I was. I had a mentor at my company who treated me like a younger brother, offering guidance without expecting anything in return. I still kept minimal contact with my parents. I sent text messages on holidays. I called on birthdays. But I stopped attending family gatherings where Brian would spend the whole time pitching his latest scheme. I stopped explaining myself when they asked why I was being distant. Some people will never understand your boundaries, and that is okay. My parents still do not get it. They still think I am holding on to anger. They still believe that family means unconditional financial support for anyone who shares your DNA. But I sleep well at night now. Not because I am cold-hearted, because I finally learned to invest in people who invest in themselves. I learned that not everyone who shares your blood deserves unlimited access to your life and your resources. Family does not automatically mean unconditional support for bad decisions. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. You cannot save someone who does not want to save themselves. I also learned about money and boundaries. Never sacrifice your future for someone else's fantasy. No is a complete sentence. It does not need justification or apology. Protecting what you have built does not make you a bad person. It makes you wise. And I learned about adversity. Sometimes what feels like the worst thing that ever happened to you becomes the best thing. That college fund getting stolen forced me into the military. The military gave me discipline, purpose skills, and education. I am not sure the traditional college path would have shaped me the same way. Sometimes, Plan B becomes a better Plan A than you ever imagined. These days, I still get messages from my parents every few months. Why can you not just help your brother? They ask it like it is a simple question, with an obvious answer. I do not explain anymore. I just say, I already helped myself. That is enough. Brian is still out there, still having ideas, still needing money, still convinced that his big break is just one more investment away. My parents still bail him out occasionally, though they have less to give now. They still wonder why I stay distant. They still think I changed into someone hard and unforgiving. But I sleep soundly. My bank account grows. My career advances. My relationships are healthy. I am planning a wedding. I am looking at houses. I am building a life that belongs entirely to me, funded by my own sweat and choices. People ask if I regret how things turned out. I tell them no. What happened to me was unfair and painful. But it taught me who I was and what I was capable of. It taught me that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you will fail you, and you have to protect yourself. It taught me that you can survive betrayal and come out stronger. They still ask me why I say no. I guess they will never understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to play a game you have already lost once. I am not heartless. I just finally learned to put my heart in the right place with the right people. And that makes all the difference. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who kept asking for help but never changed their behavior? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about choosing yourself when others would not choose you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to say no. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who is struggling with the same choice I faced. Remember, protecting your peace is not selfish. It is survival. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.